Hi YouTube everyone, today I'm going to talk about how Chinese characters helped the Meiji Restoration in Japan in this video. So what is the Meiji Restoration 1868? It's such a long history to cover within this 10 minutes of the video, but shortly put, it's Japan's rapid industrialization and modernization. And the left side, the picture depicts a Meiji emperor who initiated such reforms and led Japan into modernizations. There are a number of success factors attributed to the success of the Meiji Restoration, first of which is mass mobilization of people. As a nation modernizes and industrializes, it needs people to work, especially in the factories, for manufactured goods. By mass mobilizing Japanese people into these areas, Japan was able to achieve one of the greatest success stories in history. Second is fall of feudalism and class. Whenever there is an initiation reforms, regardless of the time, where there were people who resisted against such changes, as represented by the samurai class. But in the end, these riots and resistance were put down, and Japan was able to unify its people into modernization. Other factors also include institutionalization, advent of commercialization, and capitalism. All of these combined, Japan was able to achieve one of the most rapid and successful modernizations in history. But there is also one lesser known factor that contributed to the success of Meiji Restoration, and that is the kanji. The kanji means a Chinese character that is frequently used in the Japanese language. And I'd like to talk about this kanji in particular, a language that is so hard to learn and memorize, yet powerful and effective enough to facilitate modernization for Japan. Have you heard about the People's Republic of China? This is the official name of China. And let's have a guess. How many of the Chinese characters are from Japan or made by Japan? Surprisingly, these 5 out of 7 words were made from Japan. In People's Republic of China, except the word China, people and republic were created by Japan. And these Japanese-made Chinese character words are called waseigo. So what are waseigo again? There are numerous examples of Japanese words adopted into Chinese, such as direct, injection, exit, contagious, disease, artery, you name it. Not just in this list, there are also a lot of words like economy, philosophy, chemistry, and these words are still in use. We all know that Chinese made Chinese characters by themselves, but it is the Japanese that created these modern vocabulary. And this is something I think China is ought to be angry about. So how did this happen? Let's look at the difference between China and Japan when there was a Western influence penetrating East Asia and they were yet to modernize and develop. So China took this 中体西用 approach, which is pretty much maintaining the old Chinese system, but at the same time selectively accepting Western institutions and their technologies. On the other hand, Japan has this 脱亚入欧, which means getting away from Asia and become a part of the West. To do so, Japan westernized completely in every single way. So they based their education, administrative and government system based on the British system and military system based on the German system. And we all know that in the end, who won and who became the more stronger than the other. So what would be the problems in accepting the West and becoming the West in every single way? Obviously, it would be a language. Because everything about the West was written in their own language, English, French, and so forth. And in order to copy them, you need to take their ideas back into the Japanese language system. And in doing so, translation was necessary. So there were 2 choices at the time. The first choice was to accept English as the official language of Japan. And the second choice was to strengthen translation system and maintain the Japanese language as it is. In the end, the translation side had won the debate. Japan's rationale was that in order to industrialize a country completely, they thought, or the Japanese leadership at the time thought, that they would still need Japanese, the language as it is now, because in order to educate as many Japanese as possible, accepting English would not achieve that goal. And I can't imagine myself, Japanese people speaking English as their own tongue, as the Singaporeans do. And next, who can you see in this 1,000 yen note? This is a very famous scholar back in the Meiji Restoration time called Fukuzawa Yukichi. He had a lot of other achievements in the time, but one of the most significant contribution that he has made was that he also was one of the person who started translation by visiting the West. Along with him, numerous Japanese scholars devoted their time into going to the West, see with their eyes what their institutions and civilization is like, and started to think of ways to bring those back into Japanese language. So, these scholars had the biggest problem in translation. And what would that be? That is, how would you understand democracy, or how would a normal Japanese person at the time understand the word democracy when you're living in feudalistic samurai society at the time? You would have no idea what this new institution called democracy is. If you're in your entire life, what you have seen is the samurai and the class and feudalist lords taking up the upper ladder of the society. And this biggest problem was actually overcome by the power of kanji. Let me illustrate this with an example of the word democracy. This democracy word is translated into Japanese by minshu shugi. So the scholars created new vocabulary by combining kanji as minshu shugi. What does this mean? Let's go and break into one part by part to fully understand what this word means. First is min. It means people or citizen, which corresponds to the English word demo. Shu means main, or become mainstream to decide in this word. And shugi is two Chinese characters put together to mean a theory or institutions, which would then naturally correspond to the English word cracy. So min, shu, shugi. These words combine to mean a system or political institutionalization whereby people become the main part to decide. So let's put ourselves into the shoes of a Japanese in the 19th century. And you just saw this word minshu-shugi. You have never seen this word before and you have no idea what this means, and it is quite difficult to understand. And it's quite natural that it's very difficult to understand. But as you think about the meaning of this word, it gets clearer. Oh, so I see this word min, and that means people. And I see shu, meaning people is the mainstream of shugi, deciding politically what is going to happen. And this democracy in Chinese is 民主主義. In Japanese is 民主主義. And 民主主義in Korean. Don't they sound all similar? That's because Japanese has created this word democracy. And China and Korea also use the same Chinese character in their own languages. Let's take another example, tetsugaku. So tetsugaku means a wisdom or brightness combined with the study. So it means the study of wisdom. Let's have a guess what this translation correspond to in English. And as you would have guessed, it's philosophy. So isn't this really intuitive that by combining each word of Chinese character, you come up with a new concept, and that corresponds to the English concepts. And it is thus become very easy to have a guess what this new word means by using the kanji. I believe that the kanji played a very important role. Imagine if Japanese language was solely relied on phonetic system. In that case, translation would have been a very difficult job. Look at the difference between the alphabet and Chinese character. The basic component of the alphabet system does not mean anything. A does not mean anything, D does not mean anything. Whereas Chinese characters, by its nature, represent a certain meaning because it's hieroglyphics. This is not to say that Chinese characters is superior to the alphabet or English system. In fact, such hieroglyphics were more useful back then, whereas in this globalized world now, as you see, that such hieroglyphics, you can't type them all in the keyboards. Again, language is a tool to imitate the West, and kanji played the role of the bridge, connecting the ideas of West with practice and people in Japan. And by minimizing the confusion stemming from translation, Japan was able to mass produce well-educated workforce needed for modernization. And as part of its translation legacy, Japan has the best translation system in the world, where an English dissertation would be translated perfectly within a day or two. Well, the downside of this would be that there's no need for anyone to learn and speak serious English, because everything will be translated perfectly if you just wait for 1 or 2 days. Something that had contributed to very low proficiency of Japanese people in English. And I'll talk about this phenomenon in the next video. Moreover, these waseigos are still used in East Asia, a legacy of Japan. Feeling ashamed, perhaps, the Chinese had fierce debate on this issue, because even the word for communism, which is kyosan shugi, 共产主义is also a wasego. So they wanted to translate again these words into their own, such as economics and physics. But I feel that this is too late. And no one would actually follow the Chinese system when in fact for a lot of years we've been using these words in the East Asia. And therefore, Korea, Japan, and China have the exactly same Chinese character-based words that sound so similar to each other that if you hear it, you know that they have the same origination, like the word democracy. Next time, I would like to cover a different language system in East Asia and how it affects national identities of China, Japan, South Korea, and North Korea. Please subscribe to my channel and like my videos if you had enjoyed it.